Hi, guys. So today we're going to take a look at some science that's finally caught up with what people like me know. We're going to look at the scientific evidence of how amazing you are. Okay. Okay. So we're going to start with the psychic abilities. Many of you are probably familiar with a lot of them, but we're going to go through them kind of quickly, and I will try to remember to leave all of these links in the description box. Clairvoyance is clear seeing. This is in the mind's eye, and this is a normal state of vision. Some people can do this naturally, and others have to practice and be trained. But we all have this ability. It's just that some of us get it with more ease than others. The next one would be clairaudience, and this is clear hearing. Now, for an example of this, I hear spirits when they speak. I hear God. I hear my spirit guides. I even hear sirens before I'm going to come across an ambulance, a police car, a fire truck, things like that that would have, emergency vehicles that have sirens. I will hear it in my head before it happens. I will hear things fall before they actually fall. I will hear the phone ring before it actually does. So that's clairaudience. Clairsentience is a clear feeling. It's like this supernatural ability that allows you to receive intuitive messages through your emotions, your feelings, or your physical sensations. Being an empath is a form of being a clairsentient, as they both can feel the emotions of others. However, people that have clairsentience, true clairsentience, can feel the past and the future emotions of other people, while empaths only feel the immediate emotions. Clairalliance, or aliens, sorry, which is clear smelling. A lot of psychics have this ability, and this includes taste, not just smell. So, like I can taste fudge, and then my brother will call me and he'll say he just made fudge, right? Or perhaps I smell perfume that's a familiar scent of my grandmother. And then I get a message from my grandmother, or I find a feather or a penny or, something, because this is their way of speaking to us. So, and that's my point to telling you about these things, is that we tend to think that all of the psychic abilities, telepathy included, only apply to the living bodies that have a soul. But that's actually not true, because our past loved ones, our ancestors, spirit guides, God Himself, they all communicate with us on the same frequency that we could communicate with each other, or our psychic abilities would pick up for here on the earthly plane. They would also pick up on the spiritual plane, because what's above is so below. So I want you to broaden your perspective of that, because all of this is going to segue into consciousness and the scientific evidence of it. So then we have, I skipped Claire. Yeah, I skipped a couple of them. Okay, so clairgustance is clear tasting specifically. Some mediums actually experience this when they're doing a reading, when they're speaking to the spirit world. But again, you can do this with your loved ones that are here on the earth plane as well, because when my brother cooks fudge, I can taste it or smell it. And then, either I call or text him, or he ends up calling and texting me. And yeah, sure enough, every time he's made fudge, because I am guaranteed to get some of his fudge because I'm his favorite. So then we go on to claircognizance, and this is often referred to as clear knowing or clear recognition. This is a form of ESP where you know something to be true without any prior knowledge on the topic. And this can literally be about anything. You could know about concrete trucks and not have a clue how you know so much information about concrete trucks and what they do and how to pour concrete, but you know somehow. And this is because you are claircognizant. Now, a lot of people would attribute those kinds of knowing to their past lives, but it's not necessarily your past life that you're picking up on if you're one of these people who can suddenly know things like this without knowing how you know them. Okay? You can pick up on everyone's information. Being claircognizant simply means that you are clearly connected to the collective consciousness of information. Astral projection is the seventh one. And this is, of course, where the soul leaves the body at will, and the astral body travels through the astral plane. This is how remote viewers view different circumstances. This is how people have out-of-body experiences, either under hallucination of, certain drugs, or also through hypnosis. And people can do this in their dream state as well. And actually, you do it in your dream state regularly. But if you're conscious of it, if you're aware of it, and you can do it intentionally in your dreams, then that would be called lucid dreaming, which my brother and I also used to practice doing and was quite fun. Automatic writing is another one, and this is where the individual would create written documents while not being consciously aware of what they're actually writing. And what that means really is, like, when I am automatic writing, I will just set the pen and paper on, hold the pen, set the paper on my lap or the table next to me, and I'll just kind of trance out or zone out, and then just let my hands start doing things. Sometimes it's actual writing, words, and other times it's images and pictures. So you never know what to expect. And interestingly enough, my hand always knows how to go, like, at least to the next two lines beneath the sentence I just wrote. And I just think that's remarkable because I'm definitely not looking. Channeling is the next one. Also, being a medium is being a channeler. So you can channel from the spirit world of past loved ones. You can channel God. You can channel other beings on other planets or in other solar systems. Then there's divination, and divination is when you use spiritual tools such as the tarot, crystal balls, pendulums, spirit boards, runes. There's many items. Dowsing rods are one of my favorite. So there's many methods of divination and many reasons to divine. My grandfather, who was half Native American, half Cherokee, would use dowsing rods or even a witch hazel limb to douse for water in the ground to find where the natural spring was running underneath of the ground, so that he could dig a hole and create a small well. So there are many forms of divination, especially with dowsing. But you can even use the pendulum for healing and removing energy blockages or physical ailments from the body by doing a specific way of using your pendulum rather than over top of a piece of paper. You can also use the pendulum or the dowsing rods to locate your lost keys or that credit card you laid on the counter, but now you can't find Lost wallet, lost shoe, lost person. You can use it for all kinds of things. Um, you can even test it with people in the room, have it like go show you where somebody is in the house that where they are, but you want to see the rods work, right? It's really cool to use these tools because these tools are a good visual indication of how you are actually connecting to your higher self that is connected to the collective consciousness of everything, of the all. It is the all seeing eye, you see. It does see everything. And so when you use these tools, that's like your um, small scientific way of utilizing a visual for your own evidential proof that this really is real. So then psychic healing is the next one. And of course, psychic healing can be done with crystal healing, Reiki, energy work, Tai Chi, Qigong, acupuncture, acupressure, massage, um, sound baths, tuning forks, of course, Ayurvedic or herbal practices as well. There's also cup healing where you put the hot cups on you and it suction cups the toxins out of your body. That's a really cool one to do. So people are they've scientifically proven that you use your psychic intuition to guide you in not only location of illness in the body or on the body, um, but to remove it and replace it with healthy, rejuvenated uh, cells. Then there's precognition, where you might see the future in a vision. And so you would know that that is something that is going to happen. And, just because you've seen it in your mind or you have a very strong feeling about it. There's also psychic surgery. Um, there's a spiritualist community in Brazil and the Philippines during the mid 20th century where psychic surgery was done. And yes, this is a very controversial practice, but there are psychic surgeons who claim to have the ability to treat problems as small as a cyst and conditions as deadly as cancer. Um, so people call on these spiritual guides to heal them. And this type of healing is recommended by a lot of people to be a last resort type practice that you seek out. But just side note there, psychic surgery is one of the things that I actually can do as well and have done successfully. I have removed cysts. I have healed hearts. I have done many wondrous, beautiful things that we all can do. The next one would be psychometry. And many people will ask, what is psychometry? Well, have you ever picked up a piece of jewelry or held an article of clothing or touched a piece of furniture and instantly got this impression of who the previous owner was or something about them? Well, that's psychometry. This is a psychic ability based on the idea that the objects we use and wear every day are infused with our spiritual energy, and that by touching these objects, a psychic can get an impression of certain words, colors, feelings, or events, even. And again, this is something that I could do early on in life. I could pick up a rock or a crystal and feel the vibration of it. And then I could touch something of someone else's or even the person themselves. I could touch a person and I would immediately get flashes of images of either health problems or issues, worries that they've been going through, specific reasons to be stressed out, or whatever. whatever it was, because it was always something that, I had the right words to say to them to help them in that moment. Um, and sometimes we just need a few kind words. So that's what that one is. And then remote viewing, which is where you have the ability to gather information about a person, place, or an event that's at a distance without using any of your physical senses. So viewing is an ability that's actually a skill that's learned, trained, and then improved upon. But nevertheless, it is learning to control your abilities to see things. Your clear vision. Then there's retrocognition, which is post-cognition, and this is the ability to have knowledge of past events that could not have possibly been learned through normal means. So much like precognition, this can occur in dreams and in waking visions alike. Then there's telekinesis. And of course, we all know what telekinesis is because we've seen this in the movies Carrie and X-Men and stuff like that. But while no one's really bending spoons or making things float with their mind, there are more subtle instances of telekinesis that have been reported. One of the examples would include the ability to influence the numbers on a dice roll or which side of a coin would land. And even like the roulette wheel and things like that. There's been several study groups that went to casinos and stuff and practiced telekinesis in double-blind studies to see how effective thought really can be on things. So I, again, want to say to you that thought does not only control our physical health and our mood, but it also controls and manifests the world around us. And that is not limited to just what we see before our eyes. This can also include, like, if you're mad enough, you could knock the salt and pepper shaker off the counter and almost hit your kid in the head with it. Because I've done that before and I didn't know that I could do this stuff when that happened. I mean, it really freaked us all out. And ironically enough, I wasn't even in the same room with the salt and pepper shaker that my daughter almost got hit in the head with. I was in the opposite room. She was screaming and yelling, and I was really mad at her. And so in my mind, I was just like, I was imagining that I was sweeping my hand through the air toward her, like I'm going to backhand her face, even though I wouldn't really do that in real life. But I was just like taking out my frustration in my mind. And this is before I could realize really just how powerful we are. And the salt and pepper shaker flew off of the counter where she was standing and almost hit her in the head. And like immediately, as soon as it happened, she yells, "Mom!" Like she knew it was me, even. Like she knew I did it and I wasn't even in the room. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening? So that's when we started testing that. And it really is about thought and will. It really, really is. And it can be dangerous. So be careful. Don't hurt somebody. Okay. So the next one is telepathy. And we all have this, guys. We all have it. How many times have you been standing next to somebody and you were like, what did you say? And they're like, I didn't say anything. And you're like, oh, I could have swore I heard you say something. And they're like, no, I didn't say anything at all. But actually, they did. They were thinking it and you heard it. We do this all the time. I'm telling you, we have this ability naturally. You just don't notice you do anymore. It's so subtle that it was easy for them to tell you to forget it. So, telepathy occurs when an individual psychically imparts information to another person. This could be described as someone having the power to put thoughts into someone else's head from a distance. And actually, it is in a way because you're on the same wavelength with this person because you've made some kind of a bond, some type of a quantum entanglement connection to them. And that's why you're able to do this with them, you see. Twins do it naturally, right? Mothers and fathers can do it naturally with their infants all the way up to their adult children if they've got this bond. So we all have that ability to do that. And I've told this story before, but one time I bought frozen pizza at the grocery. And on my way home, it was a 20-minute drive. And on my way home from the store, I started thinking to my third oldest child, who was 17 at the time, um, to preheat the oven because I'm coming home with pizza. And, we were always doing practice tests like that and with playing cards and different things to practice their mind powers. And so I got home from the store, and to my pleasant surprise, she had picked up on the message. The oven had been preheated and was ready for the pizza to go immediately in the oven, which I was very grateful for because I was starving to death. It's a wonder I didn't buy out the whole store. So, we can do this, and we do it all the time. And this is how you think of someone and then they call you. That's telepathy. That's you being connected to one another. Okay, so this is from Cornell Chronicles, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's really long, and I don't want to be too long at this stuff. I've already went like 40 minutes just talking about. Yeah, that's 40 minutes. Wow. Okay. So it took him 8 years and 9 experiments with more than 1,000 participants, but he finally has the evidence to offer that humans have some ability to anticipate the future. Now, he is excited. This gentleman is extremely excited about proving different forms of ESP because he did not believe in them to begin with. He was actually asked to debunk someone else's study on psychic abilities and went into it thinking that this was going to be easy to do, and came out absolutely fascinated because he could not in any way, shape, or form debunk the other people's research. It was legit, it was genuine. We are psychic. So I'm going to definitely put this link from Cornell University in the description box. Let me just see where the one little excerpt was I wanted to mention. Okay, here it is. Bim's 9 experiments demonstrated similar unconscious influences from future events. For example, in one experiment, participants saw a list of words and were then given a test in which they tried to retype as many of the words as they could remember. Next, the computer randomly selected some of the words from the list and gave the participants practice exercises on them. When their earlier memory test results were checked, it was found that they had remembered more of the words they were to practice later than words that they were not going to be practicing later that were chosen from the computer, you see. They had no clue about this part of the test yet. In other words, the practice exercises had reached back in time to help them on the earliest test. Reached back in time. Time travel. Mandela effect. Deja vu. Interesting. Interesting. Moving on. Scientific research about psychic ability, spiritual healing, and metaphysics. And again, this is the Life Leap Institute's website. But this is to talk about what the Princeton University has found. The Dean of Engineering. And actually, it's a pretty cool, here it is, Princeton's Engineering Anomalous Research Project helps us all to understand what human abilities are actually attainable. Check out their unimpeachable research validating remote viewing, also known as clairvoyance, the sixth sense, and one of the many psychic abilities, as well as telekinesis, which is the influence of matter from the mind, and the dynamics associated with many of these experiences. So I'm definitely going to be leaving these links for you because there's lots of great things to read about here. Past lives, out of body experience, near death experiences. And this covers so much information about all these different ways that Princeton University has been studying spiritual healing, metaphysics, and psychic ability. And again, I want to remind you, they're not finding that some people can do this and others can't. What they're finding is that everyone has this ability on one level or another. We all have it. Now, this is a great one. Science proves psychic abilities are real. Now, don't listen to their part where they say, but are they worth the price? Because if you continue reading this entire article, they are really pushing the spiritual technologies that are being created by Tesla and the likes, Gates and all them, you know, for their profit. They probably have money invested in them, I would say. Own stock, you know, whatever. Okay, so now this is another official study that I want to also add to the list of links for you to go and completely look over on your own in your own time. Because if we went over every single one of these, it would take up way too much time in this one video. But this one is the scientific and spiritual implications of psychic abilities. And this is, again, an authentic scientific paper on the applications of psychic ability. And then this is a great one down here too. Pediatrician characteristics associated with attention to spirituality and religion in clinical practice. And I love this because this is going to be the way of our world in our future, guys, where our doctors are bringing the natural laws back into account. Okay, now this one I wanted to show you to back up more evidence of the spiritual consciousness hack that is currently going on. This is probably a taxpayer funded research study where they were looking for the genetics of the psychic ability. They wanted to locate the control exome sequencing. Okay, control exome. Do you see? So let me just find where that's at here. If such a component were found, it would constitute a biological marker of psychic ability and inform environmental or pharmacological means of enhancing or suppressing this ability. Do you see? They're looking for ways to turn off your psychic gene because they are looking for every way possible to stop the Great Awakening. That nothing can stop what is coming. Okay, so the next one is the noetic signature inventory. This is development, exploration, and the initial validation of the noetic sciences. And I'm going to show you two different pages on the noetic sciences. This one is a .gov. However, with that being said, the man who actually funded the original noetic sciences, which is the next page we're going to look at, was also an astronaut and very interested in the noetic sciences because he saw things in space that he didn't think were possible. And he needed to learn more about this connection because those other beings were speaking to them through telepathy with ease. Okay, so I'm not going to read through all of this, but in study 3, they confirmed the final 44 item NSI in a diverse population. The 12 factors were inner knowing, embodied sensations, visualizing to access or affect, inner knowing through touch, healing, knowing the future, physical sensations from other people, knowing yourself, knowing others' minds, apparent communication with non-physical beings, knowing through dreams, and the inner voice, which is your higher self, your consciousness that you hear speak to you all the time until you don't plug that into the light socket. You're going to get electrocuted, or whatever. That voice that speaks to you all the time tells you don't turn left yet, hold on. That is your consciousness. That is your higher self. Some people like to say that it is their spirit guide, but it is not. That voice you hear in your head effectively that sounds like you or similar to you is your higher self. Okay? And then you've got another idiot in there talking all the time that also sounds like you, who just rambles and talks nonstop, or at least mine does, or used to, until I taught her how to just shut up, because she was a blabbermouth, a jabberjaws. Okay, so moving on to the next one now. That doesn't want to load. Here it is. This is brainfacts.org, understanding the power of meditation. And this one we are going to go through a little bit here, okay? Tibetan monks meditate for hours upon hours each week. Their devotion to their religious traditions makes them experts in the practice of meditation. Turns out those experts had a lot to teach us about how sustained mindfulness affects the brain. Meditation and mindfulness induce a heightened state of awareness and focused attention. Various studies demonstrate the practice can actually help relieve stress, as well as manage anxiety, reduce inflammation in the body, improve memory and your attention, and so much more. So there's a neuroengineer at Carnegie Mellon University named Ben He, and he decided to look at the brains of Tibetan monks. In a previous study, he and his colleagues saw that individuals with meditation experience were better able to control a computer cursor with their mind than those without. Now, this is something that early on my brother and I would practice and mess with each other doing. He would freeze my mouse up on the screen without touching it while my hand was on. He would lock up my computer. He actually doesn't really understand how to control that energy so much, and sometimes it happens without his thought and will. And well, or perhaps it's just the worry of him doing it. But anyway, he messes up his own stuff too, real bad. So, or maybe that's just his karma. I just heard in my head that's his karma. I hope you're listening, Rob. Anyway, they could control the computer cursor with their mind much better than those without this. Since the Tibetan monks spent years of their lives engaged in the practice of meditation, he was curious to see if there might be any significant differences in brain activation that might offer a hint into how meditation leads to so many beneficial effects. We went to Tibet and we measured activity in the brains of the monks, on average 15 years of meditation experience each, between 5 and 35 years. We then compared those results to native Tibetans who had never meditated before. Using EEG, which is electroencephalography, I can't say that word right, a series of electrodes placed on the scalp to measure the brain activity, he and his colleagues found that long-term active meditation practices decreases activity in the default network. What's that? Default network? Could that be a program, guys? That's a program within you that we can actually rewrite through hypnosis, through meditation, through conscious focus. We can rewrite the brain. Okay. So, in the area that's like the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. What's more, the longer a monk had been practicing, the bigger the reduction in activity the researchers had observed. It seems the longer you do meditation, the better your brain will be at self-regulation. So you automatically override the program if you know how to meditate properly. So how interesting is that? Wonder why they don't really want us to meditate and learn much about spirituality. Gee, could it be because we would automatically rewrite their program that is not natural law? My answer to you is yes, Kelly. That's exactly what it is. Okay, moving on. A pioneering neuropsychologist named Michael Posner, or Posner, from the University of Oregon, was one of the first to outline how the brain's attention systems work, and says that this makes sense. His own work with Yi Yong Tang has shown distinct changes to the white matter, or the nerve fibers, that allow different brain regions to more effectively communicate with one another, surrounding the anterior cingulate, a part of the brain heavily involved with managing attention with meditation practice. Using diffusion tension imaging, a special kind of neuroimaging technique, Posner and his colleagues found increased levels of myelin, sometimes referred to as brain insulin, after only a few weeks of regular meditation practice. And that increased insulation helps improve connectivity by letting different brain regions communicate faster and more effectively. And if you could just learn to meditate, guys, you honestly can learn to heal yourself physically. Please pay attention to that. Please. This is so crucial because we really can change everything about this world. How healthy we are, how long we live, how well we help each other, what happens to the planet itself. We would never, ever have to worry about anything like global warming or incoming asteroids or comets if we simply learned to know thyself. The power of meditation. We're not going to read through all of this. But there are a few things in this I wanted to bring to your attention. So this Dr. Benson from Harvard Medical School is a professor, and he has found that people who meditated used 17% less oxygen, had lower heart rates, and produced increased brain waves function that is found to help with sleep. Years later, he said the following about his research. All I have done is put a biological explanation on techniques that people have been utilizing for thousands of years. Before the real socialistic dogmas and religions and educations took hold. Meditation is available to all people, requiring only a few minutes of quiet, an openness to try it, and a willingness to just let go. The mind is powerful. Meditation is a practice because its practitioners always have room to grow and try again. When you begin meditation, it is important to refrain from judgments on yourself or the process. If you cannot visualize, don't sweat it. Just sit there and be. Before you meditate, find a quiet spot. Sit down in a chair, on the floor, outside. Lay down if that's what's more comfortable for you. Just don't go to sleep. And as you begin your practice, be patient with yourself. If your mind wanders, take a moment to pause and reflect on it, and then bring your attention back to center. And remember, the more you do that, the easier meditation will become. And with some level of commitment, you will be able to focus more deeply each time that you practice meditation. And there's a lot of really great different kinds of meditation you can do. So I don't want to hear anybody saying, I can't do this and I can't do that, because there's guided meditation. There's progressive muscle relaxation meditation. There's guided imagery for those of you that can visualize. There's self-massage, which is an active form of mindfulness practices. There's loving kindness meditation, where you fill your heart space with love, and it emanates outward from loving yourself to loving everyone else and blessing the whole planet. There are lots of really beautiful ways to meditate, and it can help save your life, guys. I'm serious about that. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I have tried this in real life, and it worked for me. With some practice, some faith in yourself, with genuine dedication to trying to remain open and learn, you can do great works too. Just like Jesus told the disciples, you can do the same great works. Okay, so this is noetic.org, which is the foundation of Noetic Sciences. The Noetic Sciences, well, I'm just going to read it like this: a scientific view of our inner experience. Science has profoundly changed the way we view reality, but there is so much more waiting to be discovered. A more complete understanding of our world requires a more advanced set of tools and practices. IONS, IONS, uses scientific exploration and personal discovery to push beyond the current limits of human knowledge. Inspired by a profound experience of a personal discovery of Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, he created IONS in 1973 to explore the interplay between scientific knowledge and inner knowing. Today, we have the world's largest team of multidisciplinary scientists conducting research on frontier topics in consciousness and its impact in our lives. And I will be sharing this link as well, because there is so much valuable information here to be gained. Okay, now we're going to move on to not this. Where is Mr. Billy? I'm going to find Mr. Billy. Is this it? No, it must be this one. It's this one. When you know it would be the last one. Okay, so I'm going to have to play and pause just for a second, just to make sure it's going to load correct. Okay.
Number one factor for what it really means to be awake, knowing about the occult and understanding that there are both light and dark aspects to it. What is the occult and why should you know about it? The occult is a body of science which is not widely known to the general population, consisting of hidden knowledge about the workings of the human psyche and the laws of nature, both the seen laws, meaning the physical laws, the physical sciences, and the unseen laws, meaning the spiritual laws, the laws that govern morality, the laws that govern behavioral consequence. The key point to keep in mind here is that the occult is hidden knowledge. It doesn't mean bad, it doesn't mean evil, it doesn't mean negative, it doesn't mean Satanism, voodoo, or any other specific occult practices. The occult is a generalized term, generalized terminology for hidden knowledge, for knowledge which has been hidden from people's view. So hey, could that include sciences that people don't really understand about how energy works in the universe, how we could gain energy from different methodologies other than internal combustion engines or burning fuel or things like that? Sure. All of those things are occult knowledge. We have to understand the difference between these two terms, exoteric and esoteric. Exoteric means something that is intended for or likely to be understood by the general public. Okay, it's common knowledge. The word exoteric comes from the Greek adjective exoterikos. Exoterikos in Greek means external or outside of. The core of truth lies at the very center, at the bullseye. That's what we ultimately want to get to if we're going to transform ourselves and transform our society for the better. The esoteric is information which is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with specialized knowledge or interest. The esoteric is that which is hidden or occulted. It is mysterious. It is beyond the range of ordinary knowledge, experience, or perception. It is that which is communicated only to the initiated. The initiated means those who have begun a process of initiation. The knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the human psyche and how the psyche operates, its components, its aspects, its motivations, its desires, etc. What drives us? What's going on at a
Okay, I just wanted to pause that for a second. The initiated, the chosen ones, are who get taught this secret, esoteric knowledge that is in these secret societies, because they knew that the ancients knew this for all people. And who do I mean by they? I mean the ones that are the dark fleet, the dark forces, the nefarious, reptilian, Annunaki, whoever you want to call them, who do not want the Great Awakening to occur. They never have. And they've always known that it would. They know that this is cyclical. They understand that. They wanted to find a way to continue their reign beyond our golden age of Aquarius, beyond our awakening, beyond this particular cyclical event. You see, this whole time they've been trying to figure out how they can continue to be in control of you. So only the chosen few get to learn our God-given innate psychic abilities. We all have them, but they have worked effortlessly and diligently from all aspects, all crevices, all alleys and avenues of your life to convince you from day one that that's not real, it's not true, it's fairy tales, it's the devil, or whatever. You're crazy. Maybe they've labeled you schizophrenic. Who knows? I'm not saying all people that are diagnosed schizophrenic are not, so I'll just be clear there. But there are misdiagnoses for sure, and intentional at that. There have been many secret government programs done to locate the psychic children, the ones that had the stronger psychic ability, that their programming was not overriding the psychic ability. They sought them out in secret. I was one of them. So was my brother. We were both involved in some of this experimentation and infiltration and trying to learn how it works so that they could reverse engineer it.
Psyche operates, its components, its aspects, its motivations, its desires, etc. You know, what drives us? What's going on at a subconscious level? How our reality is built, it's built atop knowledge. On top of that knowledge as a foundation, you either have a grasp or an understanding of those principles or you do not. So these are decision-making, filtering processes. These processes take place in the human mind and are chosen by each individual based upon the available information that they have taken in. So if you haven't done your grammar or you haven't aggregated your knowledge in step number 1 of this process, you can't possibly do the processing and come to an understanding of it. That's why so many people have no understanding of the principles of the occult sciences. Because
also, I want to point out here that all of these symbols that he's showing, some people are triggered by these symbols and they feel like they know them. They feel like they understand them. Even if they don't understand them, they feel like they're connected to them, or they feel like they understand them. And that is there for a reason. Just like those old sayings, I'm always bringing up how those old sayings that have been passed down through oral traditions are very real, very literal for those who have the eyes to see. And that's how they locate certain initiates, because they can infiltrate people and sway them to their side rather than let them go off on their own and be an independent entity who learns from their own experiences. They want to control those experiences.
they haven't even started beginning to learn what the occult is or what it contains. Then the third step in this process is act.
However, it's not limited to just for the symbols are not there as part of a program, just so you're clear. The symbols are there because it's DNA memory. Okay, that's why they're calling to you. It's DNA memory. No different than if you're attracted to things about Egypt or the Mayan culture or Spanish culture or anything else, right? This is DNA memory imprint. Excuse me, that actually draws your attention to these symbols because these are sacred geometry. These are sacred symbols. And the symbols are not evil, as a lot of people would have you to believe. This is just more ways for them to try to scare you away from learning who you really are.
Actually taking action based upon your understanding. Each individual in a society, each individual's behavior is based upon the quality of their decision-making processes that they exercise in step number 2, which in turn were based on the quality of the available information which they took in. Wisdom is action. It's different than knowledge. It's different than understanding. Knowledge is something that exists inherently, and you can take it in objectively. Understanding is an internal process that goes on within the self, based upon the knowledge that you've taken in and processed. And then wisdom is action. It's what you do in the world with the knowledge that you have accrued and understood. The lack of knowledge is ignorance. The lack of understanding is confusion. And the lack of wisdom is folly. One more level above that is what we get based upon what we've done. What is manifested? What is generated? What do we experience? The manifested reality. It's the quality of the conditions that we experience. And the quality of the condition which manifests collectively in our society, in any society, is based upon the aggregate quality of behavior within that society. So again, it's a stepwise progression. What we've taken in, what we've come to understand, how we behave, what we get. If you understand one slide, deeply understand this process, because this is what the dark occultists do not want people to understand. That's the real law of attraction, folks. Not the New Age variant of it, not the New Age hokum mysticism. I want to sell 1 million billion.
Let's just hear that one more time.
What we get based upon what we've done. What is manifested? What is generated? What do we experience? The manifested reality. It's the quality of the conditions that we experience. And the quality of the condition which manifests collectively in our society, in any society, is based upon the aggregate quality of behavior within that society. So again, it's a stepwise progression. What we
So do you understand? If they keep you busy, if they keep you tired, if they keep you angry, if they keep you poor, if they keep you struggling, if they keep you in fear, if they keep you competing, then they keep you in control. Change your mind, change the world. We are in a matrix and we can recreate that matrix. That's how we make a new earth. And that's not new age bullshit. That's science.
we've taken in, what we've come to understand, how we behave, what we get. If you understand one slide, deeply, deeply understand this process, because this is what the dark occultists do not want people to understand. That's the real law of attraction, folks. Not the New Age variant of it, not the New Age hokum mysticism. I want to sell 1 billion books telling people what they want to hear, law of attraction. Okay? This is how the universe actually works inherently. And it describes not only how it works, but our relationship to that process. And this is what they don't want you to know. The Commission tradition, this is the ancient Egyptian system of moral teachings, of occult practices and beliefs. The Commission people were from Egypt, which was then called Kemet. Kem or Kemet means the black land or dark in ancient Egyptian. The term may have referred to the darkness of the soil of ancient Egypt, caused by the mineral deposits left by the yearly overflow of the Nile River in the Nile Valley. The English word Egypt is derived from the Greek Aegyptos, which means Memphis. The original name in Commission or in ancient Egyptian for the city of Memphis was called Hut-ka-Ptah. Hut-ka-Ptah means the temple of the spirit of Ptah. Ptah is one of the highest creator gods in the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses. He was considered a very important creator god. He was actually considered the first and greatest of the alchemists. Those.
Now I'm going to pause right there just to add for anyone who is interested. I have the 144 fire codes of DNA that will activate your 12-strand DNA and fast track you if you're ready, if you're at that level where you're ready for that type of wisdom, that type of growth. Go to my website, sign up for that class. It's not a very long class and it isn't expensive. And I offer financial aid, because anyone who is at the level of readiness needs to know this knowledge. This is important. This means you become the alchemist. You become a master. And when we have more masters of alchemy for the greater good, rather than it only being bestowed upon the chosen ones in the secret societies, then we have the upper hand.
From Chem, the teachers from Chem, where the word alchemist and alchemy comes from. So Ptah was considered one of the original master teachers. He is often equivalated with Thoth, with Hermes Trismegistus in different occult traditions. Today, the word that modern Egyptians use for the nation of Egypt is Misr, which is derived from the Hebrew name for Egypt, Mizraim. Mizraim in Hebrew means a narrow place or narrow straits. This name, narrow straits, ultimately refers to the moral teachings of ancient Chem and the Chemician tradition, because they did teach a strict set of principles regarding natural or moral law. I'll get to that in a moment. I just want to look at some of their symbolism in the example of the Chemician Trinity. Just like Christianity, which derived its trinity from the ancient Chemician culture, the Chemicians had a trinity of two gods and a goddess. This was Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris, depicted there in the middle, was the creator god of this trinity. He was the father.
Let's not forget the Annunaki stories, the Sumerian stories of Enki, Enlil, and Nineveh. What's her name? Starts with an N. I can't never remember. Nineveh, something like that. Also another trinity.
God the Father, in other words. But what he symbolically represented in this allegorical symbolism of this Trinity was the creative essence of the human being, which is the thought process, the mind. The thing that ultimately has to go to work first for anything to get created. Anything we want to create or put into manifestation has to ultimately work through the mental realm first. You want to build a computer, you want to build a podium, you want to build a home, any piece of technology, it has to exist first in the realm of mind. It has to be thought about archetypally, the need for it, its purpose. Then you have to go through the process of what you're going to do to make that happen and come into manifestation. All mental processes. So creation follows the mind, hence the mind, the thoughts, that's the father figure, the creator god. And that's what Osiris represented. Isis was the goddess figure in this trinity, depicted on the right. She was the divine mother, or in other words, the emotional aspects of the being, the spirit in which we do something, our spiritual essence, the sacred feminine essence. And then when those two things come together, our cares, our desires, our spirit, combined with our mental faculties of the mind, then what happens? We act in the world, and something is generated as a result. And this was Horus. He was the male child because he represented action, the masculine principle. And he was considered the savior figure, the one that was ultimately born to redeem the world through right action. Right action is what's ultimately going to redeem the world. And you can only take right action if you have right knowledge about the difference between right and wrong behavior. So he represented right action, that which we do with our body. It's a sacred masculine force. Very powerful if we understand the Trinity as such, that it is just different aspects of our own consciousness, thought, emotion, and action. You see the god Osiris, the creator god, in the middle. And this.
They just gave you the alchemical trinity to creation, to manifestation.
Is representative of the mind, specifically the brain physiology. You have the left brain set on Osiris's left-hand side. Whoever made this graphic, I didn't make the colors in the background, I just found this graphic like this. The person probably already had a very good understanding that this represented the brain, because they actually depicted the frequencies that often represent the left and right brain. Red usually represents the left brain tendencies or capabilities, and blue is usually symbolic of the right brain, the intuitive and creative capacities. Another aspect of the Chemician tradition was the goddess Ma'at. Perhaps one of the most powerful allegorical representations was Ma'at. There was no higher god or goddess than Ma'at, because she represented natural law itself. She was the law. So the goddess Ma'at represented truth, law, and justice among the Chemician people. The purpose of coming into harmony with the teachings of Ma'at, this mother goddess figure, was to learn how to avoid self-inflicted chaos by learning the laws of morality, and thus not generate.
No different than the codes of Hammurabi or the Ten Commandments.
Generating chaos for yourself by choosing wrong action. The Chemicians taught what is known as the negative confessions of Ma'at. I call these apophatic confessions, coming from the Greek term apophasis, which means to say that which something is not. To say that which something definitively is not and has nothing to do with and is nothing like. That's the process of apophasis. You're going to say, well, if I want to describe right action, what do I want to really convey about it? I want to say It is the opposite of action that is employed toward a harmful end. It does not create harm to another being when I take that action. That's an apophatic definition of what a right is. There was a whole laundry list of apophatic confessions, or in other words, things that you had to say in the afterlife realm to this goddess when you went into the realm of judgment upon dying, that you did not do. She didn't want to know what your works were. She wanted to know what your works were not. She wanted to know, did you not engage in these things? And if you did not engage in these things, then I can say you truly were a good being. You truly understood the difference between right and wrong because you didn't do any of these wrong behaviors. This was the real narrow straits that we're talking about. It was a very narrow pathway that they defined morality to be. And in the story, in the allegorical story of the afterlife, when you went into the hall or chamber of Ma'at, the god Anubis would take the initiate or the dead being's heart, and they would weigh it on Ma'at's scale. And this represented, did they have a light heart? Did they truly understand the difference between right and wrong? Did they try to live that way all the time? Did they not make excuses and justifications? Let's look at the tradition of alchemy. This came out of the Egyptian tradition. Again, to reemphasize, it's what all these traditions were about, teaching morality to their adherents, teaching the difference between right and wrong, and teaching how natural law operates so we could transform from a being that is in ignorance of that knowledge to a being that is actually enlightened to that knowledge, and then could practically put.
I want to pause right there to remind you that in the Christian stories that we are taught, we have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden who are not supposed to eat of the tree of knowledge, okay? And they did so they were punished. This is instilling fear in you that if you seek this knowledge, it is dangerous and it is sinful and it is of the devil, okay? That was part of the control right there. Also, the excerpts in the Bible where it speaks of Moses leading the people out of Egypt, and they're talking about the Egyptians were the heathens and the pagans, and that they worshiped a nature god, and all this was evil, and so on and so forth. Does all of this information that you're listening to right now sound evil to you? They had very high morals, narrow straits for their morals and values. This story was created to keep you in fear in case your mind should ever break free of the programming and start to discover your true nature. Well, then you would think that you're evil or you're a witch. And you're not a witch. You're a human. You're a soul, a spiritual being having a human experience. And some of us are just more easily capable of tapping into our God-given, inherent, DNA instilled psychic abilities easier than others. You're not evil. You're not a sinner. You're not a witch. You're not a Satanist. You're God's children. And God gave you those abilities. And these people who want to remain in control are the ones that have lied to you for eons to keep you in fear and keep you enslaved and to keep you downtrodden so that they can keep you for themselves, for their own egotistical, greedy purposes. And I promise you, it goes way deeper than just the greed of money and power. And those are rabbit holes that we may cover at a later date.
Put that knowledge into work in real life. Alchemy literally means from chem. Al is a prefix that means from or related to or out of. And then chem, of course, meant black in ancient Egyptian and was often the name used for Egypt. So it was from darkness, out of darkness. Alchemy is an occult tradition taught through allegories. An allegory, again, is a cryptic story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted or decoded in order to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral lesson. What lesson were they trying to communicate to people by building statues? And you'd have to know the background of the story of these gods to really be able to decode, what the allegory is. Showing that statue to somebody who's never heard of Horus, Osiris, or Isis wouldn't really do much. But if you understand the verbal traditions and the written stories about those gods, then you understand what they represented and the allegory can be decoded. That's how occultism works. It works through relational and correlative thinking. Some of the symbols in the symbolic tradition of allegory, very simple, basic, rudimentary ones. There's so many of them, you can get lost in them all. There were elemental forces that the alchemists wanted to convey information about and basically define, and they had a symbol for them, and then they interpreted that allegorically. And here's some basic ones. The symbol of earth, an inverted equilateral triangle with a line going through about the 2/3 point if you take the measure from the base to the apex. The symbol of earth represented inherent characteristics of the being. Air represented the intellect, and that is the pure intellect, meaning the left brain modality, our ability to compute, our ability to define things logically, our ability to break things down, analyze, etc. Water, the inverted triangle, represented emotion, intuition, and creativity. Again, that sacred feminine essence, dealing with largely emotion and the sacred feminine qualities. And then fire, an upward pointing triangle. Again, we've seen that inverted triangle in water representing the chalice, called the chalice in many older symbolic traditions. And the element of fire in alchemy was the upright pointing triangle, which represented the blade, or again, a rudimentary masculine phallic symbol representing action, willpower, and courage. Okay, the actual ability to create change within oneself and to go out and create change in the world. Then there was a fifth element. So you have earth, air, water, and fire, and then you had the quintessence, meaning the fifth essence. The fifth element was spirit, represented by a solar wheel with 8 spokes, a circle and then an eight-spoked cross in the middle of it. This represented the divine spark or the divine essence within all of us. The essence of the source, or the creator, the underlying intelligence in nature, which is ultimately present in everything within nature, including us. Alchemists speak of something called prima materia, or starting matter. Starting substance is what prima materia was. Again, the starting substance is the human being that needs to be purified, that needs the impurities removed from them so that they can come to a more clear and accurate and de-occulted understanding of the laws of nature. The starting substance, or prima materia, is used at the inception of the alchemical work, the beginning. Silver is considered to be one of the starting substances. There are others, but silver is one of the main sources of prima materia in alchemy. The alchemical symbol for silver is associated with the moon because silver represented in alchemy the feminine aspects of the human psyche, including the attributes of intuition, inner wisdom, compassion, open-mindedness, and contemplation. And that's what you need to begin. You need that sense of open-mindedness, of desire, of willing to learn, willing to open yourself up and receive. The truth is always out there, but we have to be open to receive it. That's a feminine quality. Absolutely essential and central to the tradition of Kabbalah, which means reception. The second phase of alchemical transformation is albedo, which means whitening. Albedo represents the process of spiritual purification, the burning out of impurities from the salt or hardened ego. The salt in this step is reduced into quicksilver or mercury, which represents fluidity, and the process of rapid mental, emotional, and spiritual change, and the strengthening of the sacred feminine essence, leading to the engagement of the imagination, the only substance, the only essence from which the elixir of life, or the awakened or enlightened mind, can then be made. This step is the awakening process, the awakening step. It's when we recognize the world isn't what we thought it was, and we start developing a desire for more than the base things in life. We start developing a desire to know the truth, the desire to reach higher realms of consciousness, the desire to better ourselves and be better than we were the day before. Well, we're going to start working upon ourselves by taking in the truth and letting go of beliefs and letting go of impurities in our thought processes and bringing our consciousness into alignment with truth and with morality. That's this step of the process. Whitening, purification. The third and final phase of the alchemical, quote, great work is rubedo. Rubedo means reddening, the transmutation into gold or sulfur, alchemical substances, gold or sulfur. And they represented purified and enlightened consciousness. The elemental fire of the philosopher's stone, again, that's why it was symbolized by a red elixir. Often the philosopher's stone was depicted as a red stone itself. And that represented the unification of man, which was the limited being, with the divine will, often represented by a red color as well, the unlimited. That's alchemy in a nutshell. Very simple explanation of the allegorical tradition. Let's briefly look at the Hermetic tradition. Heed these words, ye who wish to probe the depths of nature. If you do not find within yourself that which you seek, neither will you find it outside of yourself. If you ignore the wonders of your own house, how do you expect to find other wonders? In you is hidden the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. To know the self is to know the universe. To know the universe is to know the self. It's to understand the dynamic interplay between free will and natural law, a theme that comes up over and over and over again in occult traditions and teachings.
Okay, I have one more I want to show you, and then we're going to wrap up this video because it's running a bit long. We're already at an hour and 30 minutes. What is the name of this one? I gotta move my thingy. Yeah, okay, this is the one that I thought we had earlier, actually. So this is 18 minutes long. And then in the next video, we're going to cover the real meat and bones of the science behind how miraculous you are and how you can even, think, use thought to like grow things back, like the way that I grew my finger back.
There's a huge story that hasn't been told yet to mankind, and we deserve to get this story out to everybody. A lot of people on this planet are, unfortunately, because they've been victims of the religious system, are waiting to die so that they can live. And that's a big problem that we have. What DNA is and how it operates, that's the big secret here, because once you understand that, then you're going to open yourself up to understanding how to reprogram yourself.
And I just want to interrupt him for a moment just to say to you about DNA once again. I mentioned 12-strand DNA earlier. And a lot of you are probably wondering, how in the world could I have 12 strands of DNA? Well, honey, they're only telling you about the 2 strands of DNA, and they call it a double helix. But there's actually 12 strands there. That's where those other 10 come into play that they call junk DNA. So just keep that in mind. You have 12 strands of DNA already. You just don't know how to activate them. But I do.
32 hertz and 528 hertz. It's been scientifically proven it will literally reprogram your DNA. It's an elevation of consciousness. You've gone from the primordial level of consciousness, the physical meat mode level, to a 5D ascension level of consciousness. Your body is still in the 3rd dimension, but you're thinking from a much higher dimension, a much higher level. DNA is a storage medium. In other words, it's a hard drive. This is peer-reviewed science, by the way, guys. 1 gram of DNA, which is enough to put a little tiny drop on the tip of your finger, can store 700 terabytes of data. Zeros and ones that make your phone work and make your computer work. Zeros and one bits of data, zeros and ones, can be stored on DNA. We're walking USB drives, literally. Inside of your body right now, you can store 13.5 billion years of data. Ironically, that's how old the universe is. You literally have all the information stored in your body from the beginning of time until this very moment, inside of you. So when people say the universe is in you, it's not just a figure of speech. Like, the universe is really in you. Everything that was here from the beginning is here right now. Nothing's been added, nothing's been removed due to the law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. You're just here right now in this particular form at this particular moment, but all the information in your DNA will go back, if you had the capability of decoding it, will allow you to find this out. This is why, and some of you here know that I talk a lot.
And Nassim Haramein is one of the greatest minds in the entire world. He is working with quantum physics and proving all of this. This is peer reviewed, just like Billy said. Excuse me. And Nassim Haramein was the catalyst for all of it.
About the Annunaki,
at least
these Atlantean beings that came here in the distant past and genetically modified the existing hominid. They didn't create people, they modified people. If you really analyze the text, and I'm not just talking about Sumerian text, you have to go into several different versions of text, the Enuma Elish and Seven Tablets of Creation, the Atrahasis epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, you go into the Emerald Tablets, you discover that there was already a hominid here and it was genetically modified. That was our cousin before Homo sapiens existed. What did they do to us to make us into this slave race to do the work for them? They disconnected our DNA. That's what you have called now junk DNA. It's not junk, guys. It's unplugged DNA. Why did they unplug it? Because our cousins, unlike you've been taught, were way smarter than us. I'm not talking technologically smarter. I'm talking about spiritually smarter. More in tune with nature, more in tune with the universe, more in tune with the planet itself, the Schumann resonant frequency of the earth. They had bigger brains, proven because we found the skulls all over the planet.
Also, I'm going to interrupt him again just to say that this, again, is how they lived 800, 900, 1,000 years back in the day. And now our average lifespan is what, between 70 and 85 or something? It's about thought and understanding thyself.
Planet. They had probably, because of bigger brains, most likely had bigger pineal glands, which is your spiritual antenna. All humans right now, we have billions of magnetite crystals in our brains. We don't even use them. They probably had access to their magnetite crystals, which is what turtles use to navigate the oceans to come back to where they're going to lay their eggs. And birds, they flock to the south in the winter and so forth, all using the magnetic field. Well, we have the same capability, but right now we've been disconnected from using that. If a tsunami comes inland, before it even hits, all the wild animals run to the mountains and the hills. You never see wild animals getting swept away by a tsunami. We've been disconnected. You know, our DNA has been disconnected. Our consciousness has been reduced. They've already scientifically proven and found out that a worship gene was embedded into the human genome. And they don't know who did it, but they can tell you that it was around 200,000 years ago. The same time that they discovered that chromosome number 2 in the human body was taken out, fused together, and 2 telomere caps were put on each end. Again, this is something done in a laboratory, admitted by mainstream scientists, but they can't figure out who did it. They can only tell you when. Oh, about 200,000 years ago. Well, what do the tablets say? 200,000 years ago is when they first genetically modified the existing hominid on this planet. And these tablets predate any Zecharia Sitchin's translations. Zecharia Sitchin, I want to clear this up real quick before I even proceed, never translated any Sumerian tablets. That's a hoax. He's one of the greatest researchers in the history of this planet, because what he did was he took pre-existing translated information and he painted a picture for us based off of the translations that already existed, and he wrote books about it. He never translated the Sumerian tablets. The Sumerian tablets were translated, in some cases, 100 years before he was even born. This is back in the 1700s and 1800s that the Sumerian tablets, the ones that have the information about these beings coming here and so forth and genetically modifying people, the Atrahasis epic and the Enuma Elish, were translated before he was even born. So He never translated. He just painted a picture. He tried to pull together information from the tablets, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Nag Hammadi scripts, the Emerald tablets, and he tried to paint a picture as to what he thought happened in the ancient past. Was he 1,000% accurate? Probably not. But who is? Nobody's going to be 100% accurate on anything that they put together. We're all researching. We're all searching for answers and information. But just to clear that up, because I got to get rid of that, debunk that big lie that floats around that we shouldn't listen to anything the Sumerian tablets have to say because they were only translated by Zechariah Sitchin. That's actually that's a lie. What does it have to do with DNA? Well, if you look into the Tower of Babel incident that happened, it's recorded in the Bible, but the Bible copied it directly from where? The Sumerian tablets, which predate the Bible by 6,000 years. Ironically, if you look what the majority of religious people that believe in that book, they only think that the earth and people are only 6,000 years old. Why is that? Because the Sumerian tablets date back to 6,000 years. That's when the most recent recorded history in terms of a lot of information was available. So they're going off of information that was plagiarized into other religious texts. But Sumerians in this epic, there's a Tower of Babel being built in Babylon. And this tower is rivaling the tower that was built by these Anunnaki beings, these Atlantean people. Now, whether the tower was a replica, direct, like an identical copy, whether it was like a cargo cult where we kind of deified these people as gods and we're just trying to mimic and we use straw and clay brick to build a tower that mimicked what they built, it doesn't matter. The fact is, we came together as one, all of us, and we built something together, and our reason behind it was to either honor the gods or duplicate what they were doing. And if you look at some of the ancient texts, biblical or either Sumerian, Emerald tablets, even some of the Indian books, you'll discover that people were living for thousands of years. Well, what happened? All of a sudden, they stopped living for, these are human beings, not gods. Humans were living for thousands of years. Now, mainstream science wants to say, oh, it's because they had more oxygen and all this kind of crazy stuff. No, man. We've been genetically modified, just like the seeds on this planet. That's why. But that's...
And they didn't have any kind of extra shots added to them from birth either.
Take it to the next step now. Now they have discovered that epigenetic memories can be passed down 14 generations inside of DNA. Memories. So you're wondering why you feel fear of this and fear of that, or you have a phobia of this or a phobia of that, or you feel strongly about this and not so strongly about that. It's not because it runs in your family. It's because it's in your DNA. Memories are in your DNA. So what does this have to do with us? Well, every single race on this planet.
Remember what Elon Musk said about being able to download your memories into a data bank? Remember, I told you they must have already reverse engineered us to learn how to do that and build that technology. There's your evidence.
Has been enslaved. Now, in more recent times, we've had one race try to enslave other races more than others. But, however, you have to understand this. We're all still slaves in the matrix. Every single person on this planet is a slave right now at this moment. So if you see somebody that's stressing, that's under pressure, that's feeling the negative effects of what happened in the past, you can't just wipe it away and say, it's over now, you should forget about it. Because what they're truly doing is they're suffering internally. It's an internal thing, and it's not gonna go away immediately. It's gonna take some time to do what? Reprogram. We have to reprogram the DNA. Now, how does this work with the law of attraction? What we have to do as a people on this planet is we have to literally take the system that the elites put over us to control us and keep us dumbed down and stupid and low vibrational, take that same exact system and flip it. Use the same methods, but for positive, for high frequency information. Music is universal because mathematics is universal. The whole universe is written based on mathematics. And music is also universal. That's why I started a record label called Pantheon Elite Records. I started a record label because I wanted to affect people in a positive way through music. Well, what do I do that's different? We use conscious lyrics. Okay, well, big deal. No, the music is encoded at 432 hertz and 528 hertz because the music on your radio is encoded at what? 440 hertz. Very scientifically proven, extremely detrimental to DNA. Why do they do 440 hertz knowing that it's going to be detrimental to your DNA? Because they want to keep you in a weakened state. Because why? People that come together, people that understand who they are, people that understand how much power is inside of them, will not allow this to happen. We will take control of this planet become loving beings again, love one another, help one another, and so forth and so on. So they have to keep us in a state of weakness and, of course, also sickness, because when your DNA is weak, you become what? You become sick. So all my music, I put it at 432 hertz and 528 hertz. And guess what's going to happen? People are going to start copying us and following suit, and it's going to become like an epidemic in a positive way. So we got to start the process there. Programming on TV. That's why I get involved in positive shows and documentaries and movies that teach real information, because why? I'm trying to get kids to start looking and people start looking at information that's going to help to reprogram their DNA. Another thing that you can do is positive affirmations. I have a song called Affirmations. If you look it up on any music platform, just look up Affirmations by Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4. It's a song that will literally, when you play it, it's going to give you a whole song full of affirmations, but with a composed music done by myself and a violin by the name of Richard Wagner. But it's going to program you. It's been scientifically proven by saying positive affirmations will literally reprogram your DNA. And guess what happens when you begin to do that? When you begin to think positively, when you begin to act positively, and then now you're reprogramming yourself, and now you have offspring. It may not be just this instantaneous thing where everybody's just reprogramming, we're all awake and we're all in another dimension. I mean, it could happen because anything is possible. But what I'm trying to tell you is, more than likely, we're probably going to have to go on a step-by-step realistic process to do this, and it's going to take effort and it's going to take hard work. It's not going to be easy. If you're driving down the highway and somebody cuts you off in traffic, don't flip them the finger and curse them out and say this and that and all this other kind of stuff, especially if you got your kids and stuff in the car. That's just a bad example. What you should do is you should bless that person, bless their path, bless the destination they're trying to get to, and thank the universe that you didn't crash or have a car accident, and just keep on moving in a positive mindset. When you broadcast that type of love frequency, now you're reprogramming your DNA. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And the only reason why we're in the state we are right now as a civilization on the planet is because we're not utilizing enough unconditional love. I try not to let it get me into a state of frenzy or a state of distress. I try to control my physiology and maintain the neutral point, because in the 0 point field is where you can actually focus on the problem. Because once you become completely distressed, worked up, angry, and frustrated, now your mind is putting more energy into that and not into focusing on the situation or the problem that you need to have to fix and solve the situation, which most likely means you probably need to be more understanding, be more patient, and learn a lesson from whatever happened. Now, this is not easy to do, trust me. It's a work in progress. None of us are perfect. It's all a work in progress. It's a struggle on a daily basis. This is what's really truly called in the ancient texts being born again. Being born again doesn't mean that you believing in a specific deity and that he's going to come and save you. Being born again means it's an elevation of consciousness.
It's the representation of the phoenix. It's the representation of the caterpillar to the butterfly.
You've gone from the primordial level of consciousness, the physical meat mode level, to a 5D ascension level of consciousness. Your body is still in the 3rd dimension, but you're thinking from a much higher dimension, a much higher level. It operates on something called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes can be traced back to the Dogon tribe in Mali, Africa, who actually were the original Egyptians from the land of Kem. They later migrated out to Mali. But they have these codes. These codes represent, they're flat codes on cloth, but when you take them into a 3rd dimension, they represent sophisticated numerical mathematics that depict something called error correcting codes in our modern science. And these error correcting codes are what run search engine browsers and websites. So what is governing the function of our space-time reality in the 3rd dimension is a software program that runs websites and search engines. This is peer-reviewed science, guys. This is how powerful you are. So what's happening is you're syncing up with information that's already on the net, and it's downloading into your body, and you're processing that. So with the law of attraction, what happens is the law of attraction is not just something. And you have a lot of people hear you, oh, law of attraction, I'm going to use the law of attraction, but they really don't know how to utilize it the proper way. And it's a real powerful tool to use in your life. And if you really truly understand the law of attraction, you're going to make your life so much easier. It goes along, though, with the reprogramming process. You have to begin to start the reprogram. If you want it to work consistently, you can make it work by accident here or there, spot it. But if you want it to work consistently, you got to continue to reprogram your DNA. And then you have to understand one other thing, quantum entanglement. But in quantum entanglement, which is something in real physics, it's where you use something called parabolic down conversion to get two photons or two particles on the same frequency. So once you get two particles on the same frequency, you could take one particle to the other end of the universe if you had the capability of getting it there. And the particle that's local to you, you can change the information in it, put data on it, and the other particle will change instantaneously, bypassing the speed of light. What does this prove? Distance is an illusion. There is no distance. And scientists now have discovered that the neurons in the brain phase in and out of the third dimensional reality. Look it up. I always give you real science that you can research for yourself. So your neurons, between your synapses, are actually phasing in and out of the third dimension. Where are they going? They're communicating with other realms and other dimensions, syncing and quantum entangling with particles and thoughts in other places. So when you understand this power of manifestation, how to sync with the universal consciousness through something else, which I've labeled the Christ consciousness. So the Christ consciousness doesn't mean you're syncing up with Jesus Christ. What it means is you're syncing up with the idea, the concept of this higher level of consciousness that exists out there in space-time. So when you yourself are aligning yourself properly with the universe, vibrating on a high frequency, and what does that mean, vibrating on a high frequency? That means you're thinking with love, not thinking with hate. You're thinking with power and love, and not fear and weakness. And when you do that, that puts your DNA scientifically at a high frequency. This is real science. It's not like, oh man, these people just got up here and talking about these frequencies and all this stuff. They don't know what they're talking about. No, I'm talking about real, peer-reviewed quantum physics and quantum mechanics. I want to manifest a spouse into my life, for example. Let's just go with that. I want to manifest a spouse into my life that's operating in the same frequency that I'm operating, that's moving in the same way that I'm moving, because I tried it before where one person's going this way and another person's going that way. It didn't work out. I did it twice. I'm going, man, I'm beating myself up. What am I doing here? Not that that person was all wrong or that I was all wrong, but it just wasn't a perfect match on the frequency level. So I start focusing on this in meditations. I start focusing on envisioning not a face, not a body, just a spirit light being that is in full agreement and movement in what I'm looking to do and accomplish on this planet. Now, because I'm doing that and I'm feeling this love frequency, this vibration and happiness in the meditation, I'm now operating at a higher level. Now I'm syncing up with the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness is going to carry that photonic or that particle energy to sync up with the universal consciousness on a quantum entanglement. And now I'm quantum entangled directly with the flower of life, which is the face of God. And now what happens is, just like in standard physics, when you have a globe in space and you see space warps around the globe because of the theory of relativity, Einstein's theory of relativity, now replace the globe Earth with your consciousness, with your mind. Your mind is literally, now that it's quantum entangled, it's warping space-time. It's warping the ether of space itself. And now things that you're looking for are falling, because what happens to a body in space that warps space? Things fall toward it. Now the things that you want in life are starting to fall towards you. You're creating your own quantum entanglement. You're creating the law of attraction. Now you have things falling directly towards you. And this is how the law of attraction works. You literally create a gravity well, so to speak, that things happen to fall towards you. And as you begin to operate in this mode, it then begins to happen subconsciously, where you're not even having to directly focus. As the universe knows what you need, if you're operating in the right frequency, those things will just occur in your life and pop up for you.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. And I would ask that you play this back if you need to, study it further, research further, ask questions, make comments down below. Reach out to me on the website, reach out to me by email. If you have any questions or you want to learn further, I'm not the only one out there teaching this, but together, if we all open up enough to learn, we can really change our world. And that is my goal. That is my mission. That's my agenda. Everyone has one, right? And that is mine. For us to change this world into the harmonic, beautiful, heaven on earth, Garden of Eden that it once was and has always been meant to be. So next video, we're going to cover visual science for you to look at in how amazing God created our bodies to be, to work in concert with that incredible divine essence of spirit that we have within us. Okay? So until next time, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And be well and be blessed in love and light. See you soon.